She is the head of Eco Center. Eco Center, probably you already visited Eco Center in Chernobyl evacuation area, and she works for the analysis of environmental nuclei in the water, soils, and so on. And today she will introduce some Chernobyl accident, and after the accident, and how to treat the issues of Chernobyl after the Chernobyl accident. So please, if you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask her. She said, if you do not understand, it's her fault, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not your fault if you don't understand something. Please ask her. Please interrupt her, right? Otherwise, if you do not know anything and it will be finished, the lecture is repeated. So please ask something if you don't understand. And as I said, please submit your report immediately after this lecture. Feel free to something the answer what you asked to Yulia Sensei. And if you have some questions or comments, those are also on a paper. Okay. So, 始めていいですかね。Okay, let's start. お願いします、please, Yulia Sensei.
So, dear friends and colleagues, it's a very big pleasure for me to be here today and to deliver your lectures. My name is Ms.Y.Balashevska. You may call me Yulia. I'm not the head of the epicenter, but I'm head of the laboratory. I will be very glad, but not yet. I'm the head of the laboratory, Central Analytical Laboratory. What we do is measurements of environmental samples from Chernobyl exclusion zone, and also characterization of the radioactive waste. Today we're going to tackle a very specific topic, which might be very difficult, and maybe also not only controversial but boring to some extent, but I will try to make the presentation more or less lively so that you enjoyed it. So we're going to start with the radioactive waste management program in Ukraine. You might think, why should we learn about radioactive waste management program in Ukraine? But how can it be useful for us? But in fact, we have something in common with you, and we're going to discuss it later. And we will actually learn what a national radioactive waste management program is in general. And also, on the example of Ukraine, I will show you why good practices sometimes are not very good, or good ideas have not very good practical outcome. So I'm not very sure if you're much into the radioactive waste management. So let us begin with the definition given by a respectable organization in International Atomic Energy Agency. I'm sure that you know what it is. So they give such a definition to the radioactive waste: its material, whatever its physical form, remaining from practices or interventions, and for which no further use is foreseen, that contains or is contaminated with radioactive substances and has an activity or activity concentration higher than the level for clearance from regulatory requirements. This definition seems to be a bit clumsy, and actually it is, but the two basic things that you have to remember about the radioactive waste is that, first, it's really a waste, that you're not going to use it, and it contains radioactivity higher than it is allowed for use. Every country in the world, I guess the 99.9% countries in the world, have radioactive waste. None of them are nuclear, but everyone uses radioactivity for certain purposes, and that's why radioactive waste management is what joins all the countries in the world. That is why every country should possess a radioactive waste management program, which is a system or plan offering decision makers and waste handlers specific solution for systematic management and minimization of waste in the country. This is not necessarily a separate document. To the best of my knowledge, Romania, for example, has it as a separate document. Ukraine has it like a collection of documents and approaches. The plan or the program consists a lot of elements, but the ones that we're going to discuss today are policy. So it's like a sum of beliefs, ideas, and the attitudes to radioactive waste management, inventory classification, which means how much waste we have, where it is, who owns it, responsibilities, who does what, financing scheme, because someone has to pay for the party, and research, because it's very necessary for radioactive waste management. And the key performance indicator for the program is if the radioactive waste management program is successful, then the radioactive waste is disposed of safely. So that's pretty clear. Just to remind you briefly about some facts about Ukraine. So if you don't know, maybe, because not everyone is aware, Ukraine is a comparatively big country in the Eastern Europe, actually the biggest country in Ukraine, in Europe, except for Russia, and it has an area of approximately twice as big as Japanese, but we have the population 3 times less than in Japan. We are heavily dependent on nuclear. For example, there was a rating which was made in 2014, and it showed that Ukraine is fourth in the world to have the biggest share of nuclear. Public support of nuclear is still very high, and I believe that if in 2014 we had about 50% of nuclear in our energy mix, today we have around 62. People are highly supportive, like 70%, because nuclear power plants are very good employers, and secondly because we don't have much options. We don't have our natural gas too much. I mean oil also, we import it from Russia, from different countries, and we somehow, here we have a conflict, and this was the region of Ukraine which was very rich in coal. Now we can't use it as well. That's why we have no other option than nuclear. So Ukraine operates 15 power units, and the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe and second biggest nuclear power plant in the world, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. What is common between you and us is that we have overcome two biggest nuclear accidents ever. Ukraine and Japan. But Ukrainian Chernobyl was one of the most considerable because it changed a lot in the world, and we're going to discuss it in the presentation number 3. As for the sources of radioactive waste in Ukraine, as I have already mentioned, in the north of the country we have the Chernobyl exclusion zone with not only radionuclides distributed in the environment, but also with a range of disposal facilities and waste storage facilities. Also, we have a shelter object, which is the ruined Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Unit 4. We have Units 1 to 3 of the Chernobyl nuclear plant that are under decommissioning. We have 15 power research reactors, which generate operational waste. We have 6 interregional specialized facilities, radon facilities, that collect radioactive waste from small users. We have 2 research nuclear facilities, which are research reactors. They also produce radioactive waste. And we have uranium mining in the center of the country that produce non-waste. So we have all types of radioactive waste that is possible except for reprocessing. Logically, we should have a very good program for radioactive waste management. So let's consider the elements one by one. So element 1, policy. So policy is represented by the range of laws and different regulations, among which the most important are law on use of nuclear energy, radiation protection, law on radioactive waste management, law on also radioactive waste management strategy of Ukraine, targeted ecological program for waste management, and program that concerns Chernobyl waste and Chernobyl decommissioning and shelter object, which is reactor number 4, which was ruined. So briefly, the targeted project has 13 tasks, which range from construction and reconstruction of vector to siting for long existence, high-level waste, management of radioactive waste generated at during Soviet time, during conduction of military programs, professional training, informational, educational measurements, all types of activity that can be done about the waste. And basically it tackles with the 4 streams of waste that is being generated today because of nuclear power, waste that was generated during accident, waste from smaller generators, radon facilities, and legacy waste from military programs. Management strategy of Ukraine is another very important document that shows how the things should be developed during the nearest 50 years, and it shows that we need effective regulations, we need to involve more technology, we need to establish funding, etc. So it shows the approaches and the goals for long term. And National Chernobyl Program for Chernobyl contains a lot of objectives, and basically it tackles with the site, with the waste, and with the people who will be fired sooner or later, because the Chernobyl will be transformed into an environmentally safe object, and we will not need so many personnel there. So it seems like we tackle all types of waste on paper at least. So the policy seems quite comprehensive. Element 2, inventory and classification. So inventory basically is a list of what you have in terms of radioactive waste, where it is, and how much you have it. So very, very simplified, by the inventory of Ukraine looks like this. We have around 200,000 cubic meters of operating nuclear power plants waste, but I think that this figure also includes the waste from future decommissioning, some thousand or I guess million and some 100,000 cubic meters from Chernobyl nuclear power plant, both shelter and those units 1 to 3 which are to be decommissioned. We have enormous amount of waste from accident, and we have radon facilities that contain not so much waste in terms of volume, but a lot in terms of the radioactivity. And if we look at this pie chart, we will see that had it not been for the radioactive waste, for the Chernobyl accident, we would not have so much radioactive waste, and because it is responsible for 2/3 of all the waste that we have in Ukraine. And if we add here waste from Unit 4 and waste from decommissioning of Chernobyl nuclear power plant, then we will see that 90% of radioactive waste is concentrated within a very small territory of Ukraine. If we put all this waste that is in Chernobyl exclusion zone in the standard carriages, freight cars, then we'll have a train that will stretch from Hiroshima to Tokyo, which is a lot. Means we have a lot of radioactive waste. Classification. The classification of the waste in Ukraine today is a legacy from Soviet Union, and the key factor behind the classification is a specific activity of waste, but rather not as a property of radioactive waste, but it shows how hazardous it is. We have 3 classes of waste, and basically the approach is what you need to do to protect yourself when you handle the waste. That's about the specific activity. So basically, if you deal with the high-level waste, then you need to protect yourself with, shielding, distance, and time. You know this. When you deal with low-level waste, probably you don't need that thick shielding. You can spend more time, and you can come closer to it. Basically, the category shows these things. Responsibilities. It is clear that, judging by the amount of waste that we have in the country, we have the responsibilities allocated among many organizations. We have Ministry of Energy and Coal Mining. They're responsible for the national operator of nuclear power plants, because we have in Ukraine the only operator, so they're responsible for waste from operating nuclear power plants. State Agency for Exclusion Zone Management, this is actually a part of Ministry of Environment. They're responsible for all radioactive waste in the exclusion zone. Ministry of Health are responsible for hospitals that use the sources, National Academy of Sciences for research facilities, etc. And we have State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate, which is a regulatory body that overlooks the activity, does inspections and other stuff, and they are independent of this organization. So if we look at the The responsibilities, how they are allocated. So again, the inspector and Minister of Health, they develop norms and standards. The inspectorate does the licensing, inspection, and surveillance, supervising. Ministry of Energy and Coal Mining are responsible for the treatment facilities that are situated on sites, and when they remove their waste from the nuclear power plants and bring it to exclusion zone for disposal, then the state agency of the exclusion zone overtakes. So they have the biggest responsibility. We may call them trendsetters in the radioactive waste management because they are responsible for everything. They have 90% of the waste of the country, so they do the biggest share of work. Seems like it's very clear who does what. Let's consider finance. Ukraine has an approach of polluter pays. Those who produce waste, they pay for its treatment and management. And by the way, nuclear energy generating is the biggest, is actually the only energy generating branch that is fully responsible for the waste they produce, and they put this cost into the product. So so we have a special fund, a state fund. It should cover the future costs for the needs of the radioactive waste management program. Basically, it works like this. The generator of waste, among the biggest, is the National Atomic Energy Generating Company. Then generate electricity. You buy electricity, pay for it monthly, and 1 and 2, I guess that's 2% or maybe around this, goes to this fund. The money is accumulated, which is the most important thing. The money is accumulated, and when it's time to deal with the waste, then the money is used. And all other waste, like Chernobyl, legacy, etc., are to be paid for directly from the national budget, not from the fund. So, like, very clear. And research. Here is the list of research organizations that are only a small share of research organizations that either directly or indirectly are responsible for, not responsible, but they provide support, scientific support to the radioactive waste management program. For example, Institute for Safety Problems of Nuclear Power Plants. They investigate the waste from Chernobyl site. National Center for Physics and Technology, they develop technology for plasma technologies. Institute for Nuclear Research are responsible for measurement. They're very good at measurements of radioactivity. National Academy of Science of Ukraine is actually an umbrella organization for all of this, for many of these, and they have also very good center, I guess it's called Engineering and Scientific Center for Field Radiochemical Research. So they investigate the places for disposal of the radioactive waste. And Ukrainian Institute of Agricultural Radiology, they also study the behavior of radioisotopes. And there is also Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Institute that I forgot to put here, but still they contribute. So we have a range of organizations who do provide scientific support. Actually, we have science and radioactive waste management. So, how effective the program is? We have considered all the 5 elements, and they are present, and they are present at a very good level. Remember this key factor, that successful waste management program means that radioactive waste is disposed of safely. Let's see the table. So, as of 2013, Ukraine has disposed high-level waste 0.0 cubic meters, intermediate 0.0 cubic meters, low-level waste 2.0 cubic meters out of 3 million point something cubic meters. So, what is wrong? Why don't we dispose the waste? Maybe the situation is not as good as we imagine it. Let's reconsider each element one by one again. So, policy. Let's consider the management strategy, radioactive waste management strategy of Ukraine. So I've told you that basically the strategy shows that we have 50 years from now. During the first 10 years, we have to reach all the agreements regarding the end state of the waste, regarding the conditioning and treatment plants, regarding the form in which the waste will be disposed, regarding of who pays for that, regarding the funds, regarding everything. And after 10 years, we are to start disposal of waste. We have to dispose, to decommission Chernobyl and all the nuclear power plants that need to be decommissioned. And for that we have 30 years, and after from year 40 to 50 of the strategy, we have to transform the site of Chernobyl nuclear power plant and all the dangerous sites into environmentally safe system. But nowadays we are here, we're facing year 8, I guess, year 8. We're here, so logically we have to have reached already some agreements, introduce amendments where needed, do adjustment, decide on the fund, decide on everything. But actually it cannot happen still. Every time we are about to reach some agreements to do something, then we have elections, then we have new government, then we have new minister and new president, and every time they find some things that are more important, that I consider more important than radioactive waste management. So here we have problem 1, political sensitivity. Remember, radioactive waste management program cannot be dependent on which party is today. There are some things that are more important than all this political mess. Once you choose the strategy, you have to follow it, regardless of the president, regardless of the minister, regardless of anything, because radioactive waste management is a part of national security. National security is above all. So this element seems to fail. So element number 2, inventory classification. You remember this table? It's very basic, but it shows. But the problem is that this table actually looks like that. We have an unaccounted amount of waste from military facilities. The reason is that we used to have nuclear weapon in the past. Then we signed the Budapest Memorandum, we got rid of that, but still we have some sites with radioactive waste we don't know, because this information is secret. It's gone, maybe Russia knows, maybe no one knows. And still we discover these military facilities and we have to do something about that. We don't have any record, but we still have waste there. And I wouldn't be so sure about the Chernobyl nuclear waste, Chernobyl radioactive waste, that it is solid. It's solid something. What I mean? Here in the picture you see a Chernobyl exclusion zone with some of the facilities. Let's consider the shelter. The shelter is Unit 4, you know, it ruined unit. Nowadays it looks like this. And inside of the shelter we have this. It has many names. It has like elephant's leg, fuel-containing material, lava material, or even corium. But actually this is the molten reactor core. We have no information about that. All that we know is that this is probably the most toxic substance on Earth. And we know that we have approximately 200 tons of this. How to do that? What to do with it? Who will gonna do anything to that? No idea. So, can we say that the inventory is complete? No. Let's consider the territory of the exclusion zone. We have such phenomena called non-operated temporary storage facilities in Chernobyl exclusion zone. In this case, non-operated is a very politically correct way to say unauthorized, because look at the number, about 1,000. Who will allow 1,000 temporary facilities within very small territory? No one. These temporary storage facilities, actually they're not facilities, they're just the waste, heaps of waste somewhere. They arose during the acute period of liquidation. We call it liquidation of the consequences of the Chernobyl accident. How it was, imagine a person who was a lorry driver. He loaded a full truck of radioactive waste, solid radioactive waste, and he is sent to some disposal facility to leave it there. He has to drive for, imagine, 10 or 15 kilometers with several tons of curios behind his back. Do you think he's very much inspired by that? No, really. He will go to he will not definitely go. There is 50% chance that he will go there. Actually, he would prefer to go to the nearest wood, to find a marsh, and to load his truck there. The less time you spend with the source, the more safer you are. And from that we have about 1,000 facilities actually, that look like this, and we can only assume that we have activity of around 2 petabecquerel, and the volume that we think is around this million something cubic meters. which is a lot, and still we find sometimes the sources on the, not sources, but radioactive waste distributed somewhere on the territory of Chernobyl exclusion zone. Another problem is not a radioactive disposal facility in Chernobyl exclusion zone Podlisny. It was in operation during the acute period for 2 years. Here we have high-level and intermediate and low-level waste in bulk form, which means directly as it was. They put everything in one place. And the activity, we have only rough estimates of activity. We don't know much about activity because there was such a mess. The people were not very busy making notes or keeping precise and correct records about what they put there. So problem 2 is historical and legacy waste. We don't have much information about the waste. We have only information about the waste that is being produced today, but historical waste is still a problem for us. Classification. So you remember this, the classification, 3 classes, specific activity shows what you need to do to protect yourself. But the problem is that actually the best practices show that classification should look like this. 4 classes, you see that there is also a very low level waste class, and the key factor behind the classification is not the specific activity alone, but rather a set of properties that show what you need. The properties like specific activity, toxicity, residual heat, etc., that show what we need to do with the radioactive waste to protect future generations. The higher the level the higher the class of the radioactive waste, the deeper underground you need to store it. And if we apply this classification to the radioactive waste that we have today in Ukraine, then you will see that around 60-70% of the radioactive waste which we consider today low level is actually very low level, so it can be managed with at less cost, in a cheaper way, because it doesn't require some sophisticated engineering barriers. So what you will say, so you use this classification, UK for example use this classification. What's the difference? It's anyway radioactive waste, it's waste and it's radioactive, and activity is the same. But this is actually a problem because this classification has nothing to do with the future. It doesn't show how you should tackle this waste in the future, while this one shows that you have to protect future generations, that you have to dispose it. And from there we really face the problem that we don't know what to do with the waste. If we apply the classification to our waste, then we'll see that for very low level waste we have type 1 facility Burekivka, which is actually a landfill near surface facility. It looks like trenches, and we put the waste and we dig it. For low level waste we have something that looks more like storage facility for the radioactive waste. It's a vector complex, it's about to be commissioned. And for low-lying waste, which is intermediate level, and high level waste, we have nothing. We don't even have the approved concept, or approved, not concept, but rather by a place. Obviously this waste should be disposed of in Chernobyl exclusion zone, but we don't have an approval for government for that. So waste classification, which is not looking into the future, is also a problem. Finance. You remember this? So nuclear power plants and other producers pay to a special fund. The money is accumulated, and then we spend money on national targeted ecological program for radioactive waste management. This was established in year 2008. Looks very good, but the problem is that this fund existed in this form only for 3 years, and today it looks like this. So we put all the money into the general fund, and money is spent immediately on everything. Namely, decommissioning of nuclear power plant, which is to be paid directly from the state budget, maintenance of ecological safety, which is to be paid directly, which means monitoring, and for radioactive waste management we have the smallest share of the pie. Do you think we can do a lot with this money? No. Just to compare, in pink you have what was actually planned to spend for radioactive waste, and in brown you have what was actually spent on radioactive waste management. This is like a drop in the ocean. So fund must be used as it was expected as it was set to be used. Can I?
May I ask?
Yeah, sure.
I was wondering if the Russian government pays anything or ex-Soviet Union members pay anything to the clean up the mess.
If they
Only
pay
Ukraine.
us?
Only Ukraine?
No, the radioactive waste that is within Ukrainian territory is our problem today. No, that wouldn't be very honest to say so, actually, because with regard to Chernobyl waste in Chernobyl Unit 4, all the countries in the world helped us. But regarding actually the waste, we have special NATO program, for example, OSC programs sometimes, but actually, yes, we have to pay for that. Element 5 research. Yes, research is always under budget. I believe that only Japan is the only country in the world where research is more or less well paid or supplied. But basically, problems about the research that are found just as 1, 2, 3. Absence of specialized educational programs to cover the need in radioactive waste management. We used to have a specific university for radioactive waste management and nuclear power plants operation monitoring that was called the Sevastopol National University for Nuclear Energy and Industry. After annexation of Crimea, we don't have it. Loss of expertise. If you look at the member list of all those organizations that I listed that provide support to scientific support to radioactive waste management program, you will never find their beautiful and young professor like Professor Aya Sakaguchi, because all of them are like 70, 75, 80, 85 and up to biological decomposition, because young people are not very don't relish very much the prospect of becoming scientists. They don't want them to go into science. They prefer earning money. And we have donors of knowledge, but we don't actually have acceptor of knowledge, which is a problem. And one problem is that actually the organization then, scientific organization, institution, they invent a lot of useful stuff. They invent technologies for radioactive waste management, but the problem is that in Ukraine we don't have infrastructure for implementation. We have theoretical level, we have laboratory testing, and then we have industry. And between that, we don't have any pre-industrial testing, which is a problem for that. So there is a very weak link between science and practice in radioactive waste management, and all of this explain why we don't dispose the radioactive waste properly. So what hinders the national radioactive waste management program? Political decisions. They're not always very clever. Lack of information about the radioactive waste. Classification that doesn't meet current needs in radioactive waste management. Inefficient use of the fund. And absence of adequate training and practical use of research. I don't think that we can influence those in black right now, because they depend on the people who are much above us. But those in pink are purely technical issues that can be tackled by us now. So what to do to improve the situation? So the next presentation I'm going to tell you. So that's all for now. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer.